Welcome back to the Steve Finnegan Show. Nic Horton, founder and CEO of Opportunity Arkansas, filling in for Steve today. Thanks so much to all of you that have already dove in, jumped in, and participated in First Amendment Friday. If you want to be a part of the show, you can do that. You can call in. You can text the American League Detection Line, 501-403-5276, 501-403-5276. John Luke, I lost my text screen, so during the break we'll have to get the text line back up here so we can see. I know we had some text coming in, but we're really excited, and I've been building this up the entire show, so I'm excited that it's really finally happening, being joined in studio by an education reform hero and a great patriot advocate for common sense education, which is just such an uncommon thing anymore, Gary. But Mr. Gary Newton, founder and CEO, what's your title? I should know. I'm sorry, Arkansas Lawrence.
Sorry to step on you.
No.
Since you refer to yourself as the founding executive director,
yes,
I'm going to adopt that. I've never used that, but yes.
Okay, so founder and president, CEO?
President, CEO.
Okay, president, CEO of Arkansas Learns. Not
Correct.
to be confused with the Learns Act, although we're fans of the Learns Act. We don't mind that, right? So really grateful that you're here. I know we've been wanting to do this forever, and glad you were able to come by despite the snow and ice and everything else and do this in person. Let's just kind of start high level, go back to the beginning. Maybe not the very beginning, but the beginning of Arkansas Learns. How did you get involved? And like, I know you've got, people may not know this, but Gary is a very accomplished actor as well, and did not, unlike me, has not spent his entire life fighting in the trenches of government and trying to turn things around. He's actually lived in the real world and been out in Hollywood and in a lot of films. So just tell us a little bit about your background, and then how did you find yourself where you are now?
It's so funny you refer to Hollywood as the real world.
It did sound a little funny as it was coming out of my mouth. I thought, well, yeah,
that's good. No, I had my midlife crisis at 27. I had my first, I guess, real world job out of college was at the Little Rock Chamber.
Okay.
And it was a perfect place for a generalist like me who was interested in government, interested in community, interested in business, all of those things. But after 4 years at the chamber, it was either time to run my own somewhere. That's typically how that goes. Or I also started auditioning at acting schools. And at the same weekend, a Labor Day weekend in 1988, I had the choice of going to be the CEO of the Biloxi Gulfport Chamber or going to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York. And I chose the latter. 17 years later, after 4 years in New York, 13 in L.A., I met my wife in acting class, who's an accomplished actor, screenwriter. We had kids later in life, twins, boy-girl twins, and we wanted a better life for our kids. And I knew anywhere but Arkansas, I would have to start over. And Arkansas welcomed me back at the chamber. And it was really coming back into that environment as a dad, projecting forward. My kids were 3 when we moved. So immediately we're in day school and then pre-K. And then they were at Fulbright in the Little Rock School District, and then at Roberts, the first third graders at Roberts. And it was really that experience of realizing they were going to one of the highest performing and largest elementary school in the Little Rock School District, but also expected to go to the worst performing middle school once they finished. So it was that, as a parent advocate, that led me into this work.
And that was because of their zip code, right?
100%. I moved back to a community that was tortured by the past. The business community was largely checked out. Race had polarized and chilled any discussion of constructive criticism. It was a district run by the union and racial politics. And unfortunately, the only growing area of the Little Rock School District was in West Little Rock. At that time, there were only 2 schools west of I-430 and north of Chenal Parkway in the only growing area of the city and the district. So Roberts was promised in a 2000 millage along with Stevens. Stevens was built immediately. It took 10 years to build Roberts. It was promised as a K-8. It was delivered as a pre-K-5. And then 2 years after it opened, it was so successful they canceled pre-K, which is ironic because pre-K seems to be the darling of so many today, and particularly in one side of the aisle, which dominates politics in the Little Rock School District. That pre-K has never been replaced in West Little Rock. And that's just another example of not meeting demand with supply. And so it was really an effort for me to have meaningful secondary education for my own kids. And unfortunately, it took longer than we all anticipated. It didn't happen for our family. But there are a group of pioneers that we've been, I would say, fondly called by Superintendent Wright, of the parents that have been in the trenches all this time, that saw Pinnacle View opened up because of our efforts. It saw the new high school that's being built, which will not be called Pinnacle View High School. It will now be called Little Rock West High School, along the same par as Little Rock Southwest and Little Rock Central. But that was because of people like Jeff Wood, who was on the school board at the time, got the agreement to add that. They had lost 2 millage extension elections in a row. And once they added that on to the third, it passed. And then they tried to back up on it, but then they've since gone forward, and those parents have been stalwart advocates for traditional education, ironically. The status quo always wants to challenge charter schools, choice, education freedom, all of those things. But if the traditional system refuses to supply what demand needs, then what are people to do? And that's exactly what happened in Little Rock.
So you got involved really as a parent,
100%.
Right? As an advocate, maybe because of a lack of choices or a lack of quality choices. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. We were expected to go to the worst performing middle school from one of the highest performing elementary schools.
And then that morphed into what is now Arkansas Learns, your organization, arkansaslearns.org. If folks want to learn more, talk a little bit more about what I know y'all have done a lot of work on choice, but also accountability, right, at the local level. And it's not just choice, but it's also making sure that taxpayer-funded schools are following the law and using taxpayer money prudently. Just tell us a little bit more about what y'all do at Arkansas Learns.
It really drills down to 5 core principles. We're student-focused, transparency, accountability, rewards, and choice. And we feel like that we have been toiling, preparing the field for what became Learns. We were flattered that our name was borrowed as the acronym.
Quite a compliment, Gary, I have to say.
Quite a compliment. It was a fast decision.
If they had named it the Opportunity Arkansas Act, I would be pretty proud of that myself.
Well, there you go. There you go. But it's taken constant defense. And it's something that is promised in our Constitution, but had not been delivered since that phrase was written. And we can make a very, very strong case that we're finally living up to our, I wouldn't call them our founders, but at least our early, the leadership and those that wrote the Constitution. Article 14 just made it very clear that it's not only just a free system of public schools, but you shall adopt all suitable means to secure to the people the advantages and opportunities of education. It never mentions school districts. That's a modern, if you will, construct. School districts are great, but charter schools are great. Home schools are great. Micro schools are great. Private independent schools, all of the above. So we want options that are excellent across so people can really choose what fits them best.
Well, and it's such I think sometimes you and I and our organizations and others are so in the weeds that sometimes we just kind of miss the forest of, it's just the most basic American concept that exists in some ways, that not one size is going to fit everybody, that individuals are individually created and are unique. And the idea that some government bureaucrat in Little Rock or DC or any government office can prescribe top down exactly what's best for every single kid that they've never even met before is just, to me, it's just completely un-American. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but it's so antithetical to who we are as a country and a people.
You nailed it. It's we were talking the other day, and I think we referred to it as single-payer education.
That's right.
There are those that want central government authority over everything, and that is at the root. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting the status quo that thinks of all government dollars as their dollars. You'll hear from the leadership of the union, for example. They'll always say things like, until we fully fund education, but they never say what that amount is. They just...
Yeah, I've been waiting to hear that number. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe they're listening right now, and they'll call in and text and tell us what is the dollar amount that would fully fund public education. And they always say public, by the way, Gary. They always say public education because, to your point, it's not about options or quality or what's best for kids. It's about sameness and one size fits all. And to them, that means something very, very specific, very different, I think, than what we envision for the state. Okay, we got to go to a break, right, John Luke? Okay, so we'll hang around. We're going to keep Gary for one more segment. Nic Horton filling in for Steve on the Steve Finnegan Show. First Amendment Friday. We'll get back to your texts and calls at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Steve Finnegan Show. Oh, got a very interesting text message. I'm going to get back to that one during the break. It's not super flattering, Gary. I'm going to be honest. Not a fan of me, at least. Thank you, Robert.
I thought you said was super flattering.
No, it's not. There's some words in here I probably can't say on the radio, but hey, it's not for everyone. We're talking to Gary Newton of Arkansas Learns. Nic Horton filling in for Steve today. Gary, you kind of started to allude to this at the end of the last segment, but there's a lot of people out there that are not super happy with the progress that's been made over the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm interested to get your thoughts. Maybe just go back in time briefly once again. What is different? What has changed? Because certainly there's been a lot of progress, a lot of changes, whether you like them or not. There's been a lot of movement in the education space over the last 3 years, in large part kudos to Governor Sanders and the legislature who've stepped in and made that happen. But probably more has happened in the last 3 years than any other time in recent Arkansas history. What have you seen? What are you most proud of? And kind of how do things look differently now than they did even 4 years ago?
Well, we need to remind ourselves, yes, as monumental as Learns is and was, it's not everything. For instance, we had to push to get school board elections held when people actually vote. And that was not part of the Learns Act. But that gets back to the accountability of Learns. The A in Learns is for accountability. And this primary, March 3rd, will be the highest voter turnout in Arkansas school board elections in history because it's a representative government with taxing authority. And the people deserve to vote in volume for those that lead the most important local governments in Arkansas. So what we have to remember is a lot of stuff gets stirred up about Learns, a lot of opposition and so forth. You and I together, we play defense a lot, but there's a lot more out there. We had to pass a bill this last session just to require public comment at a school board meeting. Imagine that was necessary. We had to pass a bill.
And it wasn't exactly smooth sailing to get that bill through the legislature either.
No, it was not. People did not want the First Amendment. That's your theme today.
That's right.
They did not want that in front of, because you might have rabble-rousers. You might have people that actually said something that was not appropriate.
At a public meeting.
At
a taxpayer-funded meeting. How dare we?
How dare we indeed. We have districts that I would say over half of the districts in October were not even complying with the law to list their board members, which is another new law we had passed, list their board members, list their email addresses, their positions, their terms of office. How do the people know who represent them if they are not listed? We had one school district, Quitman, which is pretty tortured by some other factors right now. They would not even say who's up for election. They were hiding that from the people. We had to go in and do the math to figure out, okay, who was elected and what, and when is the term up. So what we have to remember is $7 billion was spent on education in Arkansas. It is the biggest part of the state budget. You have to be vigilant and watch every aspect of it. And sometimes that means being constructively critical with our friends. It means that there are other things that need to happen, but I feel like the table has been set well. Now we need to start seeing the results. Part of that, we have a site called arkansasreads.org. The canary in the education coal mine is reading levels. And so we have that interactive map. Now, our landing page, disregard it. We're getting that updated. But the maps just today, arkansasreads.org, will show you the
just today. This is brand new.
The site's been up, but we had to wait until we had 2 years of Atlas score.
Wow. Okay.
2 years.
Breaking news here on the Steve Finnegan Show. This is great. I'm looking at this. I had not seen this yet. This is fantastic.
You can scroll over every district in the state. You can scroll over all the charter schools in the state and see the reading readiness. You can see the change over 1 year from last year's Atlas to this year's. You can see the percentage not close. And it's color-coded. It's got the actual name. So there's no excuse for people in authority. And what we found is most have no idea how their own district is performing regarding reading.
Oh, I can verify that. That is certainly true. And these numbers, I think I'm so glad you brought this up because to me, I mean, you nailed it. I'm not going to try to say it better than you said it, but this is the next horizon. Like this is how we change the tide of Arkansas and our education crisis, and because we have a reading crisis. And I think people are sort of aware of that on the surface, but the degree to which this is such a problem, and you've got the numbers right here at arkansasreads.org, 61%. That's nearly 2 out of 3.
I'll correct you. The landing page is not updated, but
okay.
That's close.
Okay. It's close.
That's on the back. That's on the last, back when we had the other test.
Got it.
But the maps inside it are accurate. So
but the numbers are still what, close to 2 out of 3, 60%.
35 right now. 35% are reading
ready. So the inverse of that being that nearly 2 out of 3,
right,
65% are not reading ready.
And I believe I'm going by memory here. I believe it's 36% are not close, which is even more disturbing. Now go to our neighbor to the east. Mississippi is
the Mississippi Miracle.
It. We have the same things in place as Mississippi. They have a longer runway. But we've been talking about the science of reading in Arkansas for 7-8 years. We have to start seeing the results. And if we don't, we need to find out, okay, what's the choke point? Is it implementation? Is it the professional development of educators? Is it the teacher preparation programs at our college and universities that are not properly teaching their students how to teach reading?
I love this. This is so important. ArkansasReads.org. I hope everybody will go check this out. Gary, you deserve all of your due. I know you don't want it, but so much credit for this work and all the work that you've done over the last 14 years now. The LEARNS Act, so many pieces of that and groundwork that you laid for that and this platform. The reading crisis being a conversation is due so much to your work and you continuing to bring this to the forefront. So we ran out of time, but we didn't even get to the Hollywood handout. I'm sorry. I wish